and feel like you've noticed that you've started referring actually to each other as to your relationship as a we versus an I. So, we can't make it, or, we'll be there. Like, you start actually noticing that you'll say we instead of I or me. And it's a change that happens over time, and, different timelines for everyone. But that idea that there's actually a new almost singular identity that is formed from the two of you is natural, and it in a ideal world is healthy. But that relationship identity can sometimes, and very often, based on societal stuff that's going on, and our expectations of romance and all of that, it can often kind of devolve into a situation where your individual identities are then compromised, or
dissolve fully.
or dissolve fully, and then you're just now this one new thing. And I think a lot about couples who maybe were together, think about like the high school sweetheart. I feel like this is like a very common thing for couples who have been together for so long that you don't even remember a time when you were not with that person, or maybe you were so young that you didn't even really have a chance to develop outside of that relationship.
Yep.
No judgment on that, because I'm not trying to say that that's wrong, but I think it does present more difficulty in developing an individual identity within a couple. I think that it adds complexity, because you
never got to know yourself.
You never got to know yourself outside of the relationship. And again, that's not necessarily a bad thing, but we know that, in a healthy relationship, there is a couple identity and there are two individual identities. So I read this thing where a healthy relationship has three identities, and it's a us, we kind of identity, and then it's the two people. So there's three almost separate identities within a couple, and those should be all honored and all given their chance to be explored. And so, this conversation is about that, and how to navigate that as a couple. And if you've noticed that, or maybe you haven't been aware of this as a dynamic that's playing into your relationship. So that
I don't know how you haven't.
Well, yeah, you probably haven't. You probably have, especially if it's becoming
you may be
a problem.
choosing to ignore it, but I'm pretty sure you noticed.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, on that note, Liz, how do you feel like this has played out for you and the people that you know who are in long-term relationships?
Listen, honey, this is so lit. We better get in here now, because I don't want to keep these people for an hour, because I have a lot of thoughts. I may not release them all today, but
yeah, this is
as Lane said, I forget what we were talking about the other day, but I mentioned to her, because I had actually heard of this trend. I don't know.
Yeah.
How long ago it was, last year, maybe 2 years ago, this whole idea of people like living in, like, being together but living in separate households. And my understanding was like married people. And I was like I always clown Lane, like, y'all millennials, boy, y'all the most innovative, disruptive, sometimes to your own demise people I've ever met. But we could really light that topic up all day. But this podcast is not about just debating stuff for the sake of debating it and for entertainment's sake, but we may just do it. We might have to start a whole different one, just because I have a lot of thoughts on it. But that being said, in a less controversial scenario, what I know for sure, having coached and counseled a lot of people and being up in the behind the scenes business of a lot of people as a result, is that sadly, if I had to guess, I would say 80 to 90% of couples do not have a healthy three identity scenario popping off. And some examples, what do I mean? I mean, like, folks feel like they can't or shouldn't go do a thing or go to a thing if their partner doesn't come. Or folks feel like when they're out and they're together, they shouldn't say hi to someone from the opposite gender, because they're in a relationship now. And so they should stop hugging, stop giving eye contact to anyone from the opposite sex, even if you knew them for a long time, and even if they were your friend, because now we're in a relationship, right? And it really is saddening, because when I think about relationships, I feel like there are so many people in what I would say are settling relationships, and I don't know that people I think that a lot of people think that that's just the way it has to be, right? So they don't aspire for anything else because I think this is so common that people think it's the way.